You've been trying to get off my show for a while.
Hello and welcome to episode number 61 of Unrelenting, February 24th, 2023. I am Darren O'Neill and I am coming to you live from just outside of Chirac, which is good because we're like the number one murder city in the United States now. Yes, we got the number one. We're celebrating that. What can Austin do? How many murders do you got? None.
We got plenty, man. Kidding me? We're like the second biggest murder capital city of Texas or something.
They're trying to get there. Yeah. New Orleans and Chicago, though, are the ones that have really been trying hard. And it's funny because I think both of those are Democratic controlled places.
Those Austin.
Yeah, that's true.
We can do just as bad.
Well, if you keep trying, if you really put your minds to it, you can get just as bad as Chirac.
Last year we had 88. I know it's not nearly enough compared to you guys.
No, I mean, we get that in a good weekend. But nobody cares. Nobody talks about it. That's always the weirdness of it. And I get it. Any person's life that is taken from them is bad. You know, unless it's a black person killing another black person in Chicago and then, shh, don't talk about that. We have better and better gun laws because, you know, the criminals are the ones that respect the law.
That's right. They obey all the gun laws.
It's absolute insanity. But the big news is around the Ukraine war and the UN, which is really a ballless organization. Is that a sexist thing to say that they're a ballless organization?
No, I think that's an accurate thing to say.
That came out with a resolution. And the most interesting thing about the resolution wasn't the few, the proud, the 6 countries that sided with Russia, which, you know, Belarus, I mean, that's pretty much Russia anyway. And I think it was like Venezuela. I mean, there was a few that you're like, yeah, I get it. But a lot of people are upset that China and India abstained from voting. It's like, wow. If China, of course, is like, would you guys just get this cleared up because we want to sell more cheap Chinese shit all over the world and you guys are kind of screwing with that right now?
Yeah, I think China is abstaining. Well, so is India for the same reason, which is that they do business with both sides quite a bit.
And they need that revenue.
Well, yeah.
And why take sides, really? Does it ever really help?
They don't see a point to killing their economies the way that the U.S. and Europe are doing.
Which is really weird. But then again, Joe Biden doesn't seem to know really what he's doing. Can't take care of the problems at home. You have a toxic train derail and it takes 3 weeks to get anybody from the government there. But Joey can go over to Ukraine.
Well, that's more important.
What a photo op, though, you know? And they're playing this off like Joey got big balls. He is the first president ever to go into a war zone without U.S. military on the ground. Well, I can tell you, there's a lot of U.S. military in the air.
Yeah, first of all, there's a lot of military on the ground, too.
Yes. Which
but also, they called Russia and asked for permission to visit.
Well, it was letting them know that Joey was going to be there.
Okay. That's not really what happened, but okay.
Well, the intriguing thing is the story that's been played out over the last year by a lot of people is that Vladimir Putin is so off his rocker, that he is so enraged, that he has gone over the edge into madness, and you can't even calculate what he's going to do. He could do anything.
That's right. Yeah.
But we let him know that Joey was coming, so he didn't accidentally blow Joey out of the sky or the rails or however he was coming in. So if you go and tell somebody that the president of the United States is coming, this This is very interesting to me because it says you trust that person bigly.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're like, hey, we just want to let you know if you don't want an international incident. But it's like, well, I thought that's exactly what we've been told for the last year that Putin wanted. So giving them that intel that the president of the United States is entering the country that they're at war with was weird to me.
Yeah.
Very weird. How else can you explain that except that this is all just a big psyop?
Yeah, I'm getting sick of that term. It's been way overused.
Well, of course, because that's what they do when they talk about things.
Yes. And so it is what it is. That's the best way to explain it.
Is that really better than it's a psyop?
It really is, because what you see is exactly what it is, which is a funding of the military industrial complex through taxation.
Yeah, we have to get rid of a lot of that old stuff.
Yeah, and the justification for that is something that you can't dispute, which is like, oh, well, we're helping this country fight big bad Russia, and that we need to send weapons. And I think we're over 100 billion. I think we're 110 billion now that's been spent on Ukraine. Most of that, not all, but most of that has been spent via contracts for U.S. companies. And the parts that came in cash just seem to disappear very fast.
Well, are you tired of hearing that Ukraine is a sovereign nation that was attacked? Because I find that interesting as well, being that it wasn't that long ago they were a part of the other country.
Yeah.
This isn't like we're going after Poland or any of the other European nations.
Mm-hmm.
I find that to be a little bit different. And the number, and this is something I have heard reported nowhere else. And if anybody else has heard this anywhere else, let me know. But on No Agenda yesterday, they mentioned where the refugees from Ukraine were going. And the country that got the largest number of Ukrainian refugees was Russia.
Yep.
It's like, wait a minute. So this is, just to put this into some kind of perspective, this is like the United States and Canada going to war, and Canada coming in and being like, well, we're going to take over Wisconsin because we used to own it, or whatever.
Michigan,
even better. And the Michiganiacs in mass decide that they're all going to migrate quickly to Canada.
Right.
Well, it seems to me that would be a strong indicator of where the local populations...
Well, it's because most people in this country don't know that Ukraine has been under occupation since 2014. And the people of Ukraine don't agree with the people that occupied it. And so, naturally, if there's a war there, where are you going to go? You're going to go to the safest place you can, which is going to be Russia.
Right. It's like, our country sucks, so we're going there.
Yeah. If there was a war prior to 2014, nobody would be blinking or thinking twice that Ukrainians would be moving from Ukraine to Russia to be safe. But somehow in 2014, when there was a coup instigated that was partly successful, I mean, it was successful enough to take over the capital. It wasn't successful enough to take over the entire country. That somehow everybody in Ukraine became a Nazi. That doesn't make sense. Most people are not Nazis there. The coup was organized by Nazis and funded by the U.S. And so, yeah, I mean, like any other coup, once it happens, once it's successful to the degree that it takes over the capital, the average person on the street is going to keep going to work, keep going to the grocery store, and giving lip service to the new government. Because what do you want to be, the guy that stands out and then gets killed for it? No, we already saw that. And again, Americans don't know this. So it's not even a matter of forgetting. It's like nobody gave a shit. But shortly after that happened, there was a protest in Odessa, of all places, that was an anti-coup movement and protest. And the Nazis did what Nazis do best. They managed to push people into a building the protesters essentially gave them no escape route except to go into this building, boarded it up, and lit it on fire, and just burned everybody alive.
It doesn't sound like a reasonable reaction.
I mean, again, I don't remember the name of the protest, but it was definitely in Odessa. And if you want to look it up, I'm sure you can Google yourself. Odessa. It was 100+ people that were burned to death there, and it happened shortly after the 2014 color revolution that happened there.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that people don't want to talk about. Everything is better understood in context. And you have to know the history of things to understand the context, because it's really not a simple thing. It never is. Where, we're going to portray one side as one thing and the other as the other, and it's a clear white and black. It never is when it comes to war. Then you have the U.S. president showing up on the ground, which I want to know if there were... if that was just really good green screens, if this was a set somewhere else, because it just seemed, and I know that was the other thing discussed on No Agenda. And this is why you have to look at everything now, especially in the deep fake world. Was this even legitimate? Was this happening at the time you're seeing it? You're hearing air raid sirens going on while they're walking. Well, was that true? Did that happen? I mean, who knows? This could have been Joe Biden there 2 years ago before he was even president, walking down the streets with Zelensky. How would we know when that video was from? Or it could all just be a glorified deepfake, because now the deepfakes are getting better and better and better. And you're seeing a lot of these camera angles from like behind buildings, and there's some really bizarre kind of stuff. But I was very surprised that you would have them just walking down the street. I mean, Joe Biden won't walk down the street in most cities here in the United States.
Definitely not in Chicago.
No, definitely. No, come here for the race in July of this year, Joey, and walk down the street and see how things go. So it is a lot of this stuff done in order to push a narrative, in order to get you to feel one way or the other. And it's like, oh, he is just so brave. And it was funny when you then looked at the coverage of the visits presidents have made to dangerous places, and Donald Trump walking over the border. Granted, he didn't go miles and miles in, but he walked over the border into North Korea. That was that was erased from our history, I guess.
Yeah, well, that was just the North Koreans tricking the stupid president of the United States. I think that's how it's written down.
Right. Yeah. This, again, you can't believe anything that you see or hear. And I really do believe this is going to lead to massive amounts of problems. I think it's for the mental well-being of the people living in this time. It is not good for their mental health, because they're going to be pushed in all sorts of different directions. There was a study of some sort which talked about teenage girls who have body issues because they're on the internet. And of course, they're going to have body issues because they're on the internet. When you and I were growing up and were in grade school and high school, well, you only really compared yourself to the people you knew. Now kids growing up have millions of kids they're seeing on the internet. There's, and it's like this, of course, the pretty girls are rising to the top because that's what more people want to see. And this is because of how much internet you consume, but also consuming the news, I believe, is completely unhealthy, because 100 years ago, if something didn't happen within like 20, 30 miles of your house, you probably didn't care it was going on. Now people are worried about everything.
Yeah, well, I think there's certain things you cared about, but I think the biggest thing is you were not comparing yourself in any means to people that are using technology to be better.
Right. Oh yeah.
So whether it's if I compared how I played video games in the 80s to others playing video games in the 80s, I was comparing myself to my friends.
Yes.
Which basically a subgroup of people in my school who did play video games. And, it's not a huge, like there wasn't esports. You weren't comparing your video game play to like professionals making millions of dollars a year on it.
Right.
And it's the same thing, I'm sure, for, things outside of video games. Like you said, for girls comparing beauty, it would have been comparing it to either something in magazines, which would have been girls much older than them, or it would be to people that you would see, regularly. And of course on television, but really even on television, like there were beauty trends, but, these were not hard to achieve beauty standards. Cause I remember back in like, would have been the mid 80s, the clothes trend for girls was driven by Madonna, which was basically garage sale clothing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, anybody can do that. That wasn't exactly complicated makeup either. Yeah, your eyes tended to be a little darker with the shadows, but for the most part, it was pretty simple.
Well, and there were a lot, especially in the news industry, a lot of people, both male and female, that when they made the switch to high def didn't like it because all of a sudden people were like, whoa, you're getting way more def than we need with these folks. But there was a song, I played it before we went live here on the Mighty No Agenda stream off the latest Steel Panther release. And they're a band that's, a poking fun at the 80s hair bands. And they have a lot of, very interesting lyrics that they will go with. And I think it was the first song on the latest album is, why can't you look like the girl on your Instagram? That's, it's like, that's it. Girls on their Instagram, you see them in real life and you're like, wait a minute, who are you? You don't look like you on your Instagram. It's like, yes, because it's all a lie, kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's either filters, it's either lighting, it is posing in exactly the right way. There's a lot of tricks that can be used. And you're like, well, why? When you see, back in the day when you had Playboy, before they ruined the whole concept.
Back when men ran the world.
Yes. You would see a Playmate in real life and you'd be like, oh, well, she's a solid 7, but in the magazine, she's a 10.
Yeah.
It's tricking your eye.
That's absolutely correct. There's literally, there's 110 per million in real life. There's about 300 women that are actual 10s in the U.S. currently.
And Gene is looking for all of them.
I've met most of them.
Most have restraining orders, so it's easy to keep track of them.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing is, I think most men, and this is something women don't understand, is men are not looking for 10s. 10 is something that you want to make a little recording of in your imagination, or for your imagination, I should say. You can record it in real life, but you're going to play it back in your imagination. But do you know the level of stress and anticipation that comes with actually dating a 10? Are you kidding? Or God forbid, marrying a 10?
Yeah, that's like constant stress.
You don't want that shit, man. That's not a good place to go. So yeah, you want a nice, 7. 7's about as high as you want to go for everyday contact.
You don't want to reach too high. There was somebody that posted, and I don't know what this photo was from, on No Agenda Social earlier today. I'm scrolling down, but it's probably so far down I'm never going to find it. But it was of the Ukrainian army, but the main person in the focus was a really hot woman.
Well, Ukrainian women are just really hot in general, always have been. I've dated a few.
Oh, I'm sure. But this is like, if you want to talk about the number one way of marketing this war, it's like,
I mean, not really, because you're basically saying, yes, we're going to throw away our beautiful women.
Which is a bad thing. You're like, come to Ukraine, date a soldier.
Yeah, date a dead soldier or a maimed soldier. Yeah, that's not fun.
If they're actually real soldiers, that's the question too. Because you never know where these photographs are coming from.
I have seen tons of the girls of the Israeli army photos.
Oh yeah,
and
there is nothing. I will say,
actually hot.
You take like a 7 or an 8. This is just pure producer mode, ladies, and you give them a machine gun. It's like a solid 11 at that point.
In fact, there was a photo that was floating around, and I think I may have posted it to Noja on social. If I didn't, I will. It was on floating around Twitter, but it was a mugshot photo of an extremely beautiful young lady. Probably like 20-ish, and she was convicted for I think armed robbery, but then there was a whole bunch of gun related stuff like possession of unlicensed machine guns and all kinds of things that make if she wasn't going to prison make a guy go, ooh, well, that's kind of hot.
Yeah, a girl you would never step out on though.
Yeah, right. Well, why would you want to?
Well,
why would you want to? Come on.
Especially because of the machine gun part.
Yeah. So consequently, there definitely is a way to accessorize yourself that most men, not all, not like California betas, but most men would certainly feel is adding to the God, it's so ridiculous, but the 1 through 10 number for you, which is, oh, by the way, can I interrupt the sexist comments to say that there was some feedback about the extreme sexism going on in the beginning of the last episode we did. So this seems to be a trend where you keep bringing up topics that just make us look like complete sexist pigs.
Which was the topic on the last one that was sexist?
The prime age of women is about the same as a cut of beef. Yes.
Is that what you said?
That was the topic. No, that was the chapter that you had in the episode chapter list.
I don't do chapters. Who's doing chapters? Somebody.
Somebody's doing them for you.
Well, there was a lot of discussion about, to be fair, there was no talk about what the reality of that was. Everybody just immediately came down and convicted Don Lemon of being a sexist.
Right.
Even though I have yet to find even one person that can explain to me how his statement was sexist. And Bill O'Reilly, who I normally like, did like a whole episode trashing Don Lemon. And I sent him a letter like, you're absolutely wrong. Here's the exact quote. And of course, Bill says, if I'm wrong, email me. Well, you didn't read that email, believe it or not.
I kind of believe it. I don't think I think he just does the minimum amount of work possible to get paid.
Welcome to Podcasting 101, kids. But it's like nobody can explain
I read
that
all
to
my
me.
Emails.
Well, that's because you only get like one a day.
Less than that.
See, it's even better. You got the greatest filtering system going on. But I can't understand how it was sexist, and I still don't. And nobody's been able to. I get it. I understand disliking Don Lemon.
I can explain to you how it's sexist. I mean, that's easy enough.
Because it was a man saying it about a woman.
Man talking about women. That's sexism right there.
If I were Don Lemon, what I would do at this point when I'm sitting between those two broads on CNN on the morning show.
Yeah.
If they go, hey, what do you think about that, Don? If it's not a story about a 58-year-old gay black man, I'd be like, I can't comment on that.
I mean, I think there's more creative ways to come back on that. I think you should have said, well, what do you girls think is the prime of a gay man's life?
Yes. When are you right?
And put them on the spot, have them answer. And then they giggle about it and go, well, I don't know, Don, you tell us. It's like, oh, okay. Well, then why are you asking me about women?
Yes. When do you think anybody is in their prime? That is the question. And it's a multifaceted thing.
It's whenever they're, most ready for consumption, I guess.
It is a few different things that they seem to look at. And that is, well, when are you in your physical prime? When are you in your mental prime? And I think everybody understands that once you hit a certain age, you're on the downward slide. Things don't continue to get better. And that's why you always see, whether, when you've got 24. Your life expectancy, most people aren't living over 100 at this point. I think the average age of dying is probably what, 80, 70?
Oh, it's less than that.
Somewhere in that range.
In the 70s.
So when you hit 51 years old, like Nikki Haley is, you're closer to the end than you are the beginning, which pretty much logically would say you're most likely past your prime ages. And again, this doesn't mean you can't do the job. Megyn Kelly.
Use logic to explain this shit, dude. You don't need logic.
Logic. I like logic, though.
It's a definition. There's no logic to use here. The prime is defined as a constant, and that constant is different for men and women because different things historically have been desirable of men and women. For women, your prime cannot be past your childbearing age because that is the main distinctive attribute of a woman.
Well,
that you can have children,
even if
regardless
we go,
of what you look like.
Right. Well, even if we go
and regardless of how smart you may or may not be, it is when you no longer can have children, you're just a little bit closer to being a man.
Gene at sirgene.com.
Well, there's no other way to talk about this topic, right? I mean, it's like, look, anyone that's going to take offense, they're probably not listening to this show anyway because of last episode.
Yeah, because it was all
many
offensive.
more before that.
Even if you separate this, even if you only go to mental as far as what you're looking at, forget physical, forget forget everything else and go only their mental acuity.
35.
Right. You are not in your prime.
No.
When you're hitting your 50s.
So we're way beyond our primes. That's for sure.
And you can't just ignore that because you're like, oh, that's sexist. And Megyn Kelly did the same thing that Patricia Heaton did, although Megyn Kelly did it on her show instead of on Twitter, which went down a list like, oh.
She has a show?
Yeah, Megyn Kelly.
Who the hell would watch her?
I don't know. Adam Curry went on the show. So, I mean, there you go. He was on Megyn's show.
It's that kind of, so it's a YouTube show. Got it.
No, it's, I think, Sirius. I think it's a serious radio show that is also
worse.
Has the video portion that's on wherever.
I mean, Adam Curry will go on anybody's show.
Oh, he went on your show, so you're absolutely right. You've finally proven he has hit his bottom. Poor Adam Curry. So, support him. I mean, if this wasn't a cry for help, I don't know what was.
Going on my show is a cry for help.
Yes, that's pretty sure. I mean, it is for me. I'm like, please support your podcasters.
I know, you've been trying to get off my show for a while.
Megyn Kelly was doing the same thing Nancy Pelosi started her political career at this age. I guess she was past her prime. This person
I would love to hear what she said about that because she started that at 18.
I'm telling you.
When she banged John Kennedy.
There you go.
I have photos.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Now that is what you should be publishing on No Agenda Social.
Oh, no. Some of us want to live a little longer.
You want to avoid those hot tubs. But that was, the concept of all these women. Probably, I think she mentioned Margaret Thatcher, if I'm remembering correctly. But she went down the list, and it's like, again, Don Lemon did not just come out and say, Nikki Haley's past her prime. It was in relation to the fact that Nikki Haley was talking about other people being past their prime. And he said, be careful using terminology that might come back to bite you.
Exactly.
Was basically what his comment was. So the fact that so many people covered it and it's still being talked about, it's like, and the fact that CNN sent him to like re-education training.
Yeah, whatever. It's nice to see them getting their own just resorts. So yeah, I'm happy about that part.
Well, CNN's definitely pushing.
But let's have a serious discussion about what is the appropriate age for a politician, a senior level politician like a president, regardless of sex. Like,
yes, which is what this should have gone into. Should have been exactly that.
There's a component of physical health that has to go into that. You don't want your president having physical issues.
Like Joe Biden falling up the stairs of the plane
or sitting in a wheelchair for most of their term. That's not a good thing. We don't.
Even that with FDR, I don't mind that. If he is mentally competent,
he's one of the worst presidents we've ever had.
Yeah, but he knew what he was doing. Sadly,
no, he didn't. That's why he's one of the worst presidents.
I don't know. I think he did. I think he knew what he was doing. Woodrow Wilson was even worse, and he wasn't in a wheelchair, so
he was not worse. Not at all.
I think so.
No, that's just what history books have taught you, but that's incorrect.
Well, everybody read the Sir Gene history book.
Yeah, well, Yeah, it's actually really easy. All you have to do is actually just read newspapers of that local time. And then you get a sense for what people actually thought, not what the next group in power decided to write history as.
The news media lies.
So there's some small physical component, probably not more than 10%, I would say.
Yeah, breathing helps.
There is an intellectual component.
A big one.
Which, people like George Bush were made fun of for not having a whole lot of.
Well, because he spoke in that Texas kind of way, I think George Bush was actually smarter than most people gave him credit for. But he
definitely sounded dumber than he was, but I don't know that he was particularly smart either.
Oh, I don't think he was a genius in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, Biden's kind of giving him a run for his money big time.
Which is sad.
And at a much, exactly. But then you also have, and by the way, I think mental prime is somewhere between 30 and 35. That's when you can have fast decision-making abilities of youth combined with a certain degree of wisdom gained through age.
Except you don't have a ton of wisdom yet at 35.
You're not peaking out on wisdom. So if you want to look at wisdom as the biggest component of the qualification of a president, then I think you would be looking at early 50s.
Right, because you're saying we're adding points for having wisdom. So even though your mental acuity, you may be slowing down a little bit, the wisdom is more important up to a certain age.
Up to a certain age at which the physical and mental acuities going down sort of negate the increase in wisdom let's say between 55 and 65. I think you have a bigger decrease in physical and mental with a small increase in wisdom. And by small, I mean comparatively speaking. So you're basically adding an additional 20% of your life during that decade.
Right. You're dropping quicker with your acuity than you are gaining wisdom.
Yeah. So I would say then if you're going to do it just based on the characteristics we just described, you're kind of looking at somebody being a president between their late 40s and late 50s. Like that's the band that ideally you want to find somebody in. Not somebody much younger or younger at all for that matter, nor somebody that's much older than that.
And there are always going to be outliers, which I think needs to be understood. And this is where I think
how old is Ron DeSantis right now?
Ron DeSantis, just guessing, it would be in his early 50s.
So looks like he's in his late 40s.
See, close. Early 50s, late 40s.
Born in 78.
Okay, so 8 years younger than I am.
Yeah. So that makes him just
44.
Slightly too young to be president, given our criteria.
But, in 2 years, he'll be right in that mode.
Exactly. In 2 years, he'll be at the earliest bit of the ideal range, whereas Trump will be 108.
Seems like it. But he's still a vibrant guy at that age, which I think this is where Nikki Haley really shoved her foot into her mouth by saying she wanted to go in and make a law that said any politician over 75 has to take a mental acuity test. Why put an age on this?
Yeah, I would modify that.
Yes.
I would say every politician should take the mental test.
Yes.
But it can't disqualify you is the thing. The only thing that test can do, and it should be done by candidates, not winners of the race,
right,
is to provide an additional data point to the electorate.
Yeah, and if they want to elect a brain-dead, mush-mouthed moron,
like the guys in Pennsylvania seem to like to do,
then they have that right to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you can have somebody representing you that is a complete moron.
If that's who you vote for, you get what you deserve.
But it shouldn't be a surprise at post-election.
Right. Now he took a mental acuity test and he's got the functioning skills of a third grader. Yay.
Yeah.
No, I think that's absolutely right.
I personally, and I think this is where probably more people would disagree with me, I would just say 65. I don't want to have anybody actually running for office who is over 65.
Again, I think there are outliers, including Donald Trump running the last time, coming in after a career, and he's still mentally competent. He knows what he's doing. I would not put an age on it.
Yeah, well, that's why I said most people would disagree with me for sure. But I think 65 would be appropriate. Like, let's put it this way. I have a very hard time envisioning people that are over 65 that I've ever known. And remember, I'm over 100 myself, that I can think of that would be better presidents than that same person in their 50s or 60s.
I would agree with that.
Like a Trump in his 50s would have done so much more than a Trump in his 70s did.
And the interesting thing about the whole Don Lemon thing with Nikki Haley is the conversation we're having right now is what should have been exploded in the United States, talking about those comments, not what was taken away, which was, he's a sexist. I mean, that didn't really help anybody. I think this is a valid topic for people to be discussing.
What did John call him on No Agenda? He called him a woman-hating gay man or something.
Maybe, yeah. Which, I mean,
there's some term like that.
Gay guys aren't really interested in women. There's that.
I mean, some are, just not sexually. Some of them like to hang out with women. I think that's a stereotype, but I don't think that's a completely accurate stereotype.
But it is an interesting point of view of, well, what is past their prime?
I mean,
Nikki Haley's
like
the one that brought it up. Well, I'm sure you do. And I'm sure they love hanging out with you.
I get along great with lesbians, man.
Well, I mean, you dress the same.
We dress the same and we have the same points of view on a lot of things. Yeah.
There you go. I mean, that should be your meetup for your Good Old Boys podcast.
We should do a lesbian meetup.
Yes, exactly.
That would be hilarious. Yes. Hey, we just crossed over 2,500 episodes or downloads on that show.
Nice. That's just
a milestone.
That's combined with 2,500 shows. So one person for each show.
Well, that's 16 shows.
The math is very hard to figure out. But this is the conversation that I think the world should have been having, but nobody is. And that's basically the United States in a nutshell right now, is that things are just so divided that we can't have a rational conversation about anything. And
we just did.
Well, we did.
Yeah.
But the world in the country as a generality, not. And I think more important than age would be term limits when it comes to people serving in the Senate and House.
Yeah, everywhere. Term limits everywhere. I've been a big advocate of that. I literally wrote a paper on that in high school, talking about how having term limits would have solved some of the problems we were experiencing at the time. And my God, I've lived my whole life now and not seen term limits implemented.
Well, because career politicians never lead to anything good.
Yep.
It is not public service if it's your whole life and you're getting more money than the average citizen. Now, I would totally forego the term limit talk and say stay in as long as you want if you only got paid for your first 2 terms and you did the rest on your own dime.
No, you can't do that, because then you're literally just giving away the control of that person to the corporations that are providing their income.
Then you make the income for doing the job half that of the average citizen, or that of the average citizen.
Well, that's kind of where it's been.
No, it's
politicians don't become millionaires through their pay. They become millionaires through the exemptions from laws that they have for themselves.
It's a little bit of both. They are certainly not making $30,000 a year. It's
nobody's making 35.
Oh no, there are plenty of people making.
McDonald's pays $40,000. So I think you're full of shit on that.
I mean, we're going back like a year or two before this we want $15 a minimum wage. But it's like, yeah, you're making way too much
in Congress.
And it's in perpetuity, meaning you're constantly getting a paycheck even once the job is done, which is like, what the hell? How does that even make sense?
House of Representatives, $174,000. And that was after a raise they just gave themselves.
Now, once you leave that post, how long do you still get paid? Because there's is it senators or some of these that are in perpetuity, and even after you leave, you're getting paid for the rest of your life because you served, which I don't know. I mean, the president, I get, because once you've been president, you really can't do a normal job after that. Although with that said, you can make millions just going out and talking at colleges.
Yeah. Or you can, you can be a developer
or a podcaster,
build casinos and things.
Barack Obama is a podcaster. Him and Bruce.
Is he a podcaster?
Yeah. Him and Springsteen put out a show.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's too bad about Springsteen.
It's like, what are you guys thinking? I don't know. I haven't even listened to that yet because it just seems very weird to me that
I don't know, man. I think 174,000 is about reasonable for that job. Because if that level of person would be a C-level executive in a company.
But that's the point. They shouldn't be getting that kind of pay for it. If it's really public service, then it should be a lot less than that.
Who says it has to be public service?
Well, that would make more sense because otherwise it's not public service and the politicians are not then representing necessarily the people that have elected them. They're simply trying to enrich themselves, which everybody will try to do.
Just fixes everything. I mean, that's the bottom.
Term limits fix a lot, yes.
Yeah, because you're ensuring that no special interests spend too much money on any one person because they're only going to be in for 2 terms. So there's no big incentive to spend tons of money getting a person into office who's going to be gone in 2 terms anyway.
Well, see, the interesting thing becomes you change the political landscape in a way that you would have your ramp, meaning you wouldn't just go in like Barack Obama. Starting as a senator for the state of Illinois, then to president. We all
know how you get elected in Illinois.
Well, yeah, the right people like Bill Ayers. You get involved with the commies and you get pushed right to the top. But if you could only have a certain amount of years, if you had a certain amount of term limits, that would be per each step, meaning that you wouldn't go right to senator. You would start out, as mayor and then governor and then state senator, or
that's how it used to work. I remember.
Right. Then you would go into the House of Representatives and then you would move up to the Senate. And then if you were really good, you'd move up from the Senate and you could be president. But that's how this would go, which I think would actually be better because then the politicians would have to do the work at every level. And maybe have a better understanding that by the time you actually got to the Senate of the United States, you would have enough experience from running a town or a state that you would have that experience to fall back on when you're deciding what would work.
Yeah, I'm less concerned about the experience than you are, but I'm more concerned about the fact that a lot of these people, like Biden, like Nancy Pelosi, have literally spent 50 years
stagnant
on the same chair.
Yeah.
Maybe 40, but a damn long time.
Somebody get them a new chair already, will you?
Yeah, right. And it is absolutely not representative of the people. You can argue that, well, they keep getting elected, therefore people want them. No, because remember, the way that we have elections in the U.S. is kind of fucked as well by just having 2 parties that you essentially ensure that people are reelected forever by placing a mediocre candidate, but facing against an ideological enemy. And that's true for both sides at all times. And so consequently, you have no choice as to who actually represents you because the person representing you, everybody votes for the least bad option in the U.S. with just 2 candidates of opposite parties.
Well, I think it's
So
even
it's like,
worse.
well, I don't really like this guy, but I'll vote for him versus the other guy because, the other guy is a Nazi.
Well, I think it's worse than that, which is once somebody gets into office, people have a little more knowledge of them and they don't pay close enough attention, but they know the name. They've seen them on the TV.
Yeah.
And they're the ones they vote for because it's like, well, I don't know this new guy. I don't know this person. That's why incumbents win so much more than challengers. It's because, well, we know this guy and he hasn't nuked us yet. And the economy isn't that bad. So the other guy could be worse. That is where you really need the term limits because then you force the churn. You force somebody new coming in.
You got to force it. Exactly. And the problem is that we have really two sets of elections. We have the primaries and we have the actual elections. And the primaries going up against somebody in your own party, so their stands are going to be at least somewhat similar with maybe some minor differences, who has already been in office. Just the default for most people is like, well, why would you want to take somebody that won an election against the bad guys last time out of office? That makes no sense. So there's a huge advantage in the primaries for the incumbent. A lot of times they're running unopposed. People don't run against incumbents because they realize that their odds of winning against somebody who's sitting right now in that office are very, very slim. And so you have to really have fucked things up politically to get a challenge from your own party as an incumbent.
Well, and the challenges are detrimental more than they are beneficial, meaning this is what the other side's going to use against your candidate is what your other party candidates used in the primaries. This is the intriguing part about this whole system is that the primaries are overall so screwed up that there should just be a way for the local government to figure out who they're going to put up rather than, well, let's vote on that too. Because it doesn't make sense. We saw some of that and we're going to see this again. I think this year, if this ends up being the Ronnie and Donnie showdown, I think you're going to see a bloody primary. And I don't think that is helpful to the Republican Party.
I think I totally disagree. I think it's exactly what's needed because the Republican Party is just a mess right now.
Well, so is the Democratic Party.
They're more together than the Republicans are.
Yeah, I would say there's a debate that can be had about that, but I'm just not interested in doing it.
Yeah, but I think that right now, I've said this, I think, a week after the results of the last election came in.
You mean the ones that were totally forged?
Regardless of what they were, I said it about a week later. I said, if Trump runs again, if he is the candidate on the ballot, then we will have another Democratic president in office. Trump cannot win. It's not going to happen. And so I know a lot of people really want Trump to run because they think he deserves it. But thinking that he deserves it isn't going to make it real. And if you think that the Democrats are going to be pushing with any less tools and efforts, that's the way I'll describe it, than the last election against Trump, then you're smoking the wrong kind of weed because it's absolutely going to happen. And the best gift you can give the Democrats right now is to have Trump run as the candidate in the next election because that will mobilize their base much more so than what they would have to do against literally any other candidate. You'd have to sell people on why that's such a bad vote, on just how much better, a guy like DeSantis, or how much worse DeSantis is going to be than whoever the Democrats run, which could be Biden for all we know. And that's a hard sell. Because especially if there's a big age difference and we know that there's a preference in younger people to, like, they're tired of grandparents running things.
Right. Oh,
and
yeah.
DeSantis would be a large step down in age for that. And that's a huge benefit to it, where you might get some people not voting for Biden versus DeSantis simply because they're tired of the grandparents on the Democrat side. Whereas if you run Trump, it's literally a rehash of that last election, saying, oh my God, we barely held down and kept this evil Nazi fascist out of office who's going to go and kill all the trans people. He's going to personally kill all women who want abortions. He hates women. We have proof of this from lots of videos. He hates blacks. He hates minorities. He wants to take all the Mexicans that crossed over into the border during Biden's term and then put them into a concentration camp. This is going to be what you're going to see every single day on the news.
None of it
this
true.
Is going to be sufficient to mobilize the Democrats to do, quote, whatever is necessary, unquote, to ensure that he does not have another term. So if the Republicans want to give away the next elections, by all means, they can do that. There's a way to do that. And the way is by running Trump. And I don't give a shit what people think that he deserves it. Yeah, maybe he does. But guess what? That's going to fuck things up for the country. Or people that think, well, he's clearly going to win. He has the most votes. Yeah, how'd that go over last time?
Well, yeah, if you're Donald Trump, I think you look at what has happened in the economy, and that makes you believe that you can win. And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Who knows, depending on how much of the voting is legit and not. But that really isn't the point. I agree that people want, especially after seeing Biden for 2 years, you definitely want younger and vibrant because the guy can barely speak. And I don't know how far back we have to go before the Biden and Trump fight. I don't know how far back we have to go, if it even has ever been this bad. And I'm sure it has in American history. I don't think most people that voted for Joe Biden voted for Joe Biden. They voted against Donald Trump. And that is a different concept.
Yep. And that's my point, is I think that a percentage, not all, but a percentage of the people that voted against Trump would not vote against DeSantis. They'll either not vote at all, which is more common, or potentially they'll just vote for the younger candidate, even if it's the wrong party. Now, I think that's a much slimmer chance, but getting people to not vote because they don't think that there's a good choice is very realistic. And in that scenario, most of the votes that would be no longer coming in would be for the Democratic candidate.
Well, I think the best thing Donald Trump can do is keep himself in the talk, in the minds, in people believing he's going to run until the last possible minute.
I mean, that's the thing. He's already declared.
And he's got to stay in this. This could all just be a head fake, too. This could be then he pulls out at the last minute.
Yeah, no.
Because if you could keep the bullet, well, I would agree. No, because of his ego, I would agree. But now, if we were playing Puppet Master and we could control what happens, it would be, okay, here's what you got to do. Donald Trump's got to go out there. He's got to be Donald Trump. He's got to do the Donald Trump thing. Ron DeSantis has to quietly be left alone.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is if somebody was able to control and maneuver Trump and all the politicians in that, yes, your scenario is absolutely right, which is we use Trump to fake out the Democrats thinking he's running. We have all the negative crap coming in against him. In fact, in the primaries, we'll see the news media dumping on Trump, trying to convince people how much better DeSantis is because they hate Trump. And then we use that to sort of keep the blow of news media away from DeSantis until post primaries. So just for the last few months of the elections,
right,
getting him to get a much better chance at getting in there. But I don't think that's reality. I think reality is Trump wants back in. He didn't appreciate the fact that he got forced out of office. He was already redecorating the furniture. He didn't want to have to stop that.
Well, I think we all realize if Donald Trump right now said he wasn't running, the news media would be on Ron DeSantis and he would be the new Trump. They're already pushing that way.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I just don't think that anybody, and certainly not Trump, is going to be using this to create a shield for DeSantis right now. I think this is very genuinely Trump running for real.
Here's an interesting scenario for you, brought to us by the Troll Room and Digi Guru. What if it was Trump versus Hillary again? That could actually let Trump win. I think if it is Hillary on the Democratic side, people
the elections would be decided by about 1,000 people, because most people just would not vote, period. It's like there's no choice here. There's no good choice at all.
Why are you doing this to us? What are you thinking? I would say
that might just be the kickoff of the revolution at that point.
Yes. I say make them serve together and just switch off president and vice president every year. Here's your 4 years, Hillary and Trump. You got.
We had that. We can't do it again, but we had that when Jefferson was Adams' vice president.
Right. And I think that's an interesting concept.
It did not work. Everybody hated it, and we actually passed a law saying you can't do that.
Well, because the other thing is that the vice president just has to whack
undermining the president the entire time, because they're next in line, and so their way to get in is to make sure that the president fails.
Then be like 25th Amendment. Okay, come on, let's use that.
Yeah.
So I get it.
I mean, if we want to get rid of the 19th Amendment, if we want to start getting rid of amendments, there's a way to start throwing down that path.
We want to go right to Communism 101. Let's get rid of the whole Constitution, baby.
Oh, yeah. Well, there is talk of that. I've heard from the Democrat side for sure that there's definitely a movement within the Gen Zers that the Constitution is what's keeping the United States down and needs to be gotten rid of. And because if it wasn't for the Constitution, then all these progressive ideas, which they don't realize are 200 years old, like socialism, would be able to, make the country much better than it is. We can incorporate into the constitutionality things like trans rights.
Instead of everybody gets treated the same. What is wrong with that as a law?
No, because you shouldn't be treating people that are different the same. You should be treating them better.
Nope. That doesn't work. But the kiddies don't learn that.
And that's why you're a Nazi.
Until their brains aren't fully mush. And that seems to be happening later and later now that we have social media, all these devices. Again, it's interesting. Just like the teenage girls have a unhealthy body image, it's also very easy to find people with all sorts of crazy ideas like your own. And you didn't have that before the internet.
Oh, so I had a rant on the live stream 2 days ago, which was pretty good, I think. If people watched Griftcast, they would have seen it.
And why would they really?
So because there's a lot of people watching that live. I think there were 1,000 people. But on that show, I was doing my best impression of Jerry Springer. And we had two guests on where they hated each other. Like they were literally, at war with each other, if you will.
I can see you as a Jerry Springer.
Oh, Jerry. I love
Jeannie.
And so these two women, I guess one was making videos making fun of the other one, and the other one was, she was getting videos removed from the first one because they were her material.
So these are two women with way too much time on their hands.
Well, I mean, you could argue that. I could see that argument for sure. But either way, they're both doing stuff on YouTube. But so there's a lot of emotional conversation, arguments, yelling, screaming, crying going on. And then we brought in two people from the audience, the one that supported each of the women, and give them a chance to kind of make their points. And one of the guys that came up there started talking about something, and the woman that was on the opposite side of him, or the one that he was against or whatever, said something super innocuous, I thought, but something like, I can't remember the word, but something essentially calling him an idiot, right? And then the guy chimes back, or maybe the other woman said, it was like, oh, I can't believe you're making fun of somebody who's autistic. And like none of us were told this guy's autistic. He's just an idiot. And then, like the typical reaction that people have is like oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were autistic.
Right.
And I was having none of that. I was like, no, you're not going to do that. You're not going to use your handicap to gain sympathy. That's not how this works.
Right. You're either correct or you're not correct.
If you're not capable of making a good argument, then what are you doing here? Right. If your handicap precludes you from engaging in an intellectual conversation, get off the stage. And oh my God, then I was, can't believe you just said that. It's like, oh, you're making fun of handicapped people. I'm not making fun of handicapped people. I'm saying that handicapped people who have a handicap, a mental handicap that precludes them from being able to engage in what they're attempting to engage in, does not mean that everybody else gets to dumb down their level of discourse to the level of this autistic person.
So is it anti-handicap if I won't hire a blind person to drive my race car?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's really what you're like. You are not eligible to participate in this event.
I just don't care. I just don't give a shit. I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm living in a crazy, bizarre world here. I'm living in a world of goddamn. What was that short story about the Bergerac?
Yeah,
not Cyrano Bergerac. Harrison Bergerac. Yes, that story where literally, oh, you're not handicapped enough, therefore you need to be artificially handicapped in order for everybody to be on the same level playing field.
Right. Everybody gets a trophy. Everybody's the same.
Yeah. So I really, I dug into this dude and he shut up for the rest of the damn conversation for the most part. Because I'm like, no, you don't get to use your handicap. I don't care. I don't give a shit what your handicap is. You do not get to bring that up and use it as some kind of a bludgeon against everybody else who doesn't have your handicap.
Yeah, you cannot use that as a get out of criticism free card.
Exactly. So that was a fun moment. And then last night there was a whole group, another podcast that literally watched that episode, the whole thing. Whole
so this is how you're getting more content is you do really long shows and then you bring other people on to watch the other really long show you did previously.
Absolutely. It's working great. I'm gaining like 30 people a day on Twitter.
Those poor people.
As a result of it. So anyway,
masochist, no doubt.
It was kind of fun watching. It's kind of fun watching that episode because I was in the chat while they're talking about the episode that we're watching, and I was like chiming in every now and then. But yeah, people really liked it, and they were like, "Yeah, Gene was great in this thing. He did a great."
Okay, so these were the Russian bots that you paid to come in and give you good credit scores.
No, these were totally not right. There's some Australians there. There's, I think, some British dude, and there's a bunch of Americans, obviously.
They're all bots.
Well, I mean, they all have, accounts, and they're actually actual human beings. But for the sake of politics, I suppose they'd be labeled bots because they disagree with mainstream narrative.
Well, it's easy to trigger people, and it's easy to see how we got where we are. Because of those kind of things, like, oh no, you can't say that about the autistic guy. It's like, well, no, I can, and I'm not being mean about it. I'm just saying the reality of the situation. And people get so sensitive, and they don't understand.
If you're an autistic guy and you can play the piano like by hearing a song once, that's what you ought to be doing.
Yeah, everybody's got a skill. Everybody's got a talent. I mean, I believe that no matter what your lot in life is. Any handicap that you may have, everybody's got a talent. Everybody can do something well.
I will say that it is fun watching these videos, which there seems to be more of now, which is good, of some feminist doing a snarky comment about a man. And the man in each of these cases, his first response back is like, did you just assume my gender?
Yes, how dare you?
I really hope that all men start using that as a response to anything that is anti-male, that is a comment, because they don't know what to do. They have no response for it because they're like, on one hand, they don't want to apologize because they hate you.
Right.
On the other hand, they don't want to be perceived as not being gender sensitive.
Right.
And they're like, okay, so you're a woman then? Like they get lost. Their whole argument just melts away because they don't understand what to say.
Because you should treat everybody the same and not base it upon any external factor. That's why.
But the weak cannot do that.
No, that's true. Because you're always looking for a reason.
Yeah. Place them on pedestals.
Right. Where we're looking for laws that carve out things for certain groups, which is the worst possible.
Yes. Our groups, damn it.
Yes. Is the worst.
Which is ironically the thing that they're blaming the patriarchy on doing.
Right.
Is, men created all these laws that make it better for men.
Right. So we have to
name one.
Well, they never can.
We sent all the women to the military to go dive in our wars, apparently.
Yeah. Well, then, no, we don't want women to be drafted. No, it's the same thing with the Don Lemon thing. It's like, show me what he said, how it was sexist, and nobody has an answer for that, even though every freaking media outlet, it doesn't matter left or right, Don Lemon sexist comments about Nikki Haley. They all say it.
I will say that I think this is a change in attitude over the decades, because I'm thinking back to a comment that Don Lemon would have made as an openly gay man 20 years ago. So 20 years ago would have been what, like 2003. Hell, we can go back even further, but let's just say 2003. In 2003, there were certainly openly gay men's. There were men.
Yes, many men's. Having their mensies now.
I'm going to learn the English at one of these days and times. Anyway, these openly gay men that would have been sitting at a news desk in 2003 had one said essentially what Lemon said, that, well, you got to be careful talking about her prime when she's in her 50s. You know what the response would have been of the co-hosts?
Go, girl.
Oh, you silly gay man.
Yeah, we can't say anything mean. Well, this is showing you how far it's come.
That would have been the response. Yes, and that's my point, is that
just being a man.
Just being, okay. So
any other protections you may have had from being gay, gone.
Yeah, gay and black. Because he is one of those too.
Man trumps gay, man trumps black, so man definitely trumps gay and black.
No, women trump gay and women trump black in this context.
I see.
You can't make fun of a woman. Had he said something about a man in his 50s with that comment.
Oh, nobody would have even blinked.
No. It's the fact that not giving a shit if he's gay or black, a man said something bad about a woman.
And that makes zero sense.
Yeah. But he had a very easy fix to that. And he should have said, "Are you assuming my gender?"
Yes. Right.
And that would have stopped both of those women in their tracks.
How can I be sexist because I identify?
Yeah. I am now a woman, Don Lemon.
Yes.
A black gay woman. Now
that trumps most things.
That trumps you two white bitches sitting here next to me.
Yes. That would have been exactly
and a
the way to go
gay,
about
black,
it.
White, black.
This is the rabbit hole we're going down, though.
Yeah. Well, and again, this is the sort of.
What are you, Dvoraking your microphone?
Yeah, I was just leaning back on my chaise lounge. I had to adjust the mic. And which I actually am, but
wow.
Yeah. Because it's the best way to do a podcast. I don't know why more people haven't realized this.
You're like, this is why you go audio only. You could just lay in bed.
I just didn't feel like setting up the green screen today. I was like, let's just do audio only.
You're eating grapes and sipping Chardonnay.
Not sipping Chardonnay. I'm not drinking, but
oh, that's true. It is no drink 2023.
It's no drink until I decide to drink 2023.
I'm drinking some electrolytes.
But I was gone this week, up in Fort Worth.
How is that compared to Austin?
Business trip up to Fort Worth. I haven't been in Fort Worth in a few years. Because I usually just go to the Dallas side of the Metroplex there.
Well, as George Strait once opined in song, does Fort Worth ever cross your mind?
Not often, but I suppose occasionally. There is a very distinct difference between Fort Worth and Dallas.
Well, and Austin. What is the main difference between the three of these?
Well, Austin is a brand new city where damn near every building was built in the last 10 years. Dallas is a completely flat city with lots of tall buildings, but they're purely office space. Nobody actually lives in downtown Dallas. I know I'm generalizing. There's probably a couple of buildings, but it's not much. Downtown Dallas shuts down at about 11 p.m. completely. Like no bars, no anything that's open anymore. It's a place people drive to for business and then go home to the burbs at night. Fort Worth is a lot more typical of, I think, other Midwestern cities where it's a mixed use city. So you have storefronts on the lower level with condos and apartments above. You have much older buildings. You have a lot of warehouse buildings, like brick buildings that have been converted from warehouse space to mixed use space. There used to be a lot more actual industrial in Fort Worth, but I think most of it is gone at this point. But it was interesting. I mean, the city reminds me more of Minneapolis than any other city in Texas.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more.
Have you ever been to Minneapolis? I don't remember.
It's been a while. I mean, the last time I was there, the Indian casino that's there was still small. I know they've totally rebuilt.
Oh, Mystic Lake?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now it's huge, I hear.
Oh, it is ginormous. Yeah. It used to be Little Six Bingo back in the day, and then it became Mystic Lake Casino. And I used to go there a lot because that was really close to where I lived. I mean, it was close to really where I lived in the 90s, but then even closer after I bought a house next to the casino.
See, that's way. It was very convenient. They had a shuttle bus bring me.
Did
back
I ever
and
tell
forth.
you I played poker for a year for a living?
You may have.
Yeah,
but that would explain the wanting to live next to a casino. The last time I was up that way,
they had the best gun range, man.
The Twins were still playing inside, so it's been a while.
Yeah, the Twinkies.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the beautiful.
But
Metrodome.
either way, even back then, like if you drove through downtown Minneapolis, you kind of get a sense of. It's mixed use. It's got a combination of old buildings, brick buildings, stone buildings, as well as plenty of glass towers. That's more of the feel of Fort Worth. Not as tall building. I think the tall buildings are probably like, I don't know, 35 stories maybe. They're not. I think Austin is actually taller than Fort Worth. But Austin is, that's San Francisco East. So it definitely has a different feel to it.
And you enjoyed your visit to Fort Worth?
Yeah, it was pretty good. Didn't do a whole lot, but
you find the best steakhouse in town.
Meetings, did go to a few nice restaurants. I didn't do a steakhouse though. It was just, I guess one of them was a steakhouse. Technically, I did. Yeah, I had a steak. Okay, so fine. Yes, went to a steakhouse. Forgot about that.
I mean, you have to eat meat when you're in Texas.
Yeah, but and Fort Worth is also known for its cattle industry stockyards, because that's where like all that cattle that goes to Chicago for slaughter, that's where it starts, is Fort Worth.
It's got to start somewhere before it hits
used to, I should say. I mean, these days it doesn't. But back in the day when they drove the cattle, meaning like with cowboys.
Yeah, baby, watch some Rawhide. You'll see. Or
so the cattle drive was literally it started in Fort Worth, which Fort Worth is a lot older than Dallas. It was a city way back when. Dallas is a much younger city. And they would drive the cattle all the way while the cattle is, grazing on the prairie grass from Texas up through Oklahoma and Nebraska, Kansas, and then into Illinois. And all the way up to the Chicago.
The stockyards, the back of the yards, baby.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I hear the smell used to be just delightful.
Not a fan of that smell, but it's not as bad as pig farms.
True.
That's the worst possible smell.
I prefer the steaks once they're cooked. That smell is a little better.
Yeah, well, or even when they're butchered. I mean, it's the smell is really of the intestines, not of the meat itself, obviously.
The smell of death in the air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I remember in the St. Paul stockyards, which were all closed in the by the 80s. But even just going there, there's a certain smell of death.
Yeah, not pleasant.
No, because these were humongous facilities, like, a square mile of pens getting the animals ready for slaughter.
Now, the real question is, have the ponchos been replenished at Amazon?
So they've been shipped to Amazon, but they're still showing as not in stock. So they haven't gotten them set up yet.
They rejected my review, so I have to read it.
I don't understand why they reject reviews from people that actually purchased in the store.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Because they are now so worried about
Mm-hmm.
the fake reviews, even though they have let some doozies through.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's just a question if you find a moderator that knows what they're doing or not, or doesn't care that day. I just don't understand.
Who gives a shit? If you bought the product, you ought to be able to leave a review, even if it's goofy.
Yeah. And then you could mark it as goofy or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And people love that stuff. The funny reviews always get all the thumbs up.
And that used to be a thing when they would rate. I looked the other day. I can't even tell if there is a top Amazon reviewer list anymore, where there used to be a list and you could go see who the top reviewers were.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's gone now. I think they're hiding that. I don't see a number on my profile anymore, which used to show, hey, your reviewer number, whatever.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense, because once you start rating or ranking the reviewers, that's where all the companies go, hey, we want to send those people free stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I still get emails daily, and I haven't done a review in probably 6 years.
I just think Amazon's got such a simple mechanism for that, which is to only allow people to review products they bought on Amazon.
I understand why they want to open that up a little bit.
I don't.
But for newer products, I can kind of get it. I mean, I was impressed that Amazon did email yesterday already with the, hey, you've bought that Kosari air fryer. It's been recalled.
Yeah.
Even though I bought it, 4 years ago. So I was happy that they're, that they have that ability.
I mean, that's good. I checked mine is not in that list. So,
yeah, I have one. Good. My mother-in-law has one, and my mother has one. So we're going to be getting 3 new air fryers, baby.
Yeah. What you may want to do for yours, at least, is to sell it on eBay or something and pick up the one that I've got. See if you like that better.
Well, I like the one we've been using.
I know, but it's your opportunity, because you're going to have a new one, which means that you could get close to full price for it if you sell it. And because you're not going to get anywhere near that selling a used one.
No, I did think it was interesting, their system for doing the recall, because they do not rightfully require you to have a receipt, because people do get these things as gifts, or maybe you threw the receipt away because the warranty was over. But their system is, well, we want you to write out your serial number, which is like a 15-digit number, whatever it is, on a piece of paper, then put it in front of the unit, take a picture, put it behind the unit, take a picture, put it on the underside of the unit, take a picture. They want 3 pictures.
Interesting.
And because I'm thinking about this, it's like, well, this would make sense, because you can find photos of this unit everywhere. And we all know what Photoshop and deepfakes can do now. So how many people could try to get a free air fryer? Because all you need is a valid serial number. And I don't know how hard it would be to guess what a valid serial number would be. Not that really I'm recommending anybody commit fraud. But since you don't need a receipt.
So you're not suggesting I get a free air fryer?
Right. I'm not suggesting that. Now, you can use the knowledge to do whatever you want by going to recall.kosari.com or whatever it is, where they ask for the photos. And it's like, obviously,
what's the issue? Is it overheat? Or
there is a piece in it that can cause overheating and fires. They say there have been 200 reports over 2 million units. So it's not
much. Okay.
It's not much, although they're going through the hassle of replacing
When you
them all.
use this thing, do you keep it on a counter with crap on top of it, or do you put it on your island in your kitchen with nothing above it?
I don't have an island, so there are cabinets right above.
Okay. Yeah.
So you'd have to be careful with that
Yeah.
when using it, although we have used it almost daily for the 4 years we've had it, and I figured if it was going to go up in flames, it probably would have. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. But
Well, you should turn it on and leave it on for like 5 hours and see if it catches fire.
Right. See what happens. You might want to do that outside.
Maybe.
But I mean, I've run it at the highest level, which for ours is only 400 degrees.
Right.
And I've done that for 45 minutes.
This is what I like about the one I got, because it's really hotter. Makes doing the meat, just searing in the flavor really good.
I like to sear my meat.
525 or 550, something like that.
Now, the intriguing thing about the photographs for the Kosari was the photograph, and it didn't say all of them, so I just only did this in one.
Mm-hmm.
They want to see that you've cut the cord.
Oh, interesting. So they want a proof of destruction.
Correct. Although Photoshop allegedly would make that very easy.
Yeah, that's not hard to do.
To make it look like you cut the cord.
Yeah.
And then continue using it, because
are they selling scissors that you should use for cutting metal?
They should, right? You know, just cut the cord and I'm like,
cord cutter? I'm a cord cutter.
It's not very hard to be fair. It's not very hard to repair a cord that's been cut.
Sure.
So there's that. I don't know what this is proving, except it's probably removing their liability.
Exactly.
So if you go and put that cord back on, you're like, hey, I didn't know. I burned my house down.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, that serial number, you prove that you had cut the cord.
Yep.
So we're not responsible if your house burns down.
So you reattach the cord and then drop it off at the Goodwill.
Right. Or in my case, you don't actually cut the cord, because that wouldn't allow you to use the unit before. My question is how long it's going to take them to ship a new unit.
Oh, probably a while, I would think.
Right. Because people that normally do cook, they will do so multiple times a week. So
totally.
How long am I going to be without my cooker, man?
Yeah.
You got to get these things out. I mean, one, good that they're doing it, but it's going to be interesting to follow that. And
I still have to get rid of my old one. I keep forgetting to throw it away.
And I'm just saying it's going to be interesting to see how many people, because right now we're going to see if it takes over a day for it to be in the review process, because they're obviously they get the information, they look at the photographs. And I'm just wondering how many people are going to try to get a free air fryer by guessing a serial number. Because I don't know, do companies, when you put out serial numbers, is there any reason to play the game where they're just not sequential?
No, they're more often than not, they're sequential. So all you got to do is find a photo of a serial number online and then add some random digits, and then they'll probably be a legit number.
Yeah. And if you're the first one to claim that unit, you probably are in good shape. You could get 1,000 free air fryers. The more interesting thing was there was a third party that has verified that the piece at question has been fixed and upgraded, and that's no longer a problem with the new air fryer. Guess people don't want to burn their house down when they're making food. I don't know.
So my guess is that piece is probably like the clamp that attaches the cord to the unit.
It's possible.
Because that's the most likely location of a fire. If that piece breaks
and overheats,
because if it overheats or dries out, they use the wrong type of plastic. They use Bakelite instead of something else. Then the cord will not be attached, and so it's more likely to, every time you unplug or plug the unit in, there's more pressure on the cord, and it'll slide out and then create a short. The short will then melt plastic and catch the unit on fire, which will burn down the kitchen and your whole house. That's how you Sherlock Holmes this shit.
And then that's a bummer. Omega Project says, my kids used to get hungry every damn day. It's like, do they still not get hungry every day?
Yeah, it's too bad. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I don't know. Damn kids. But that'll be interesting.
I mean, can't you just put them in front of a iPhone or something, and then they won't complain about hunger?
Like most parents do, right? Here, no, have a phone, kids. Have a kid. No, it's fine. It'll be cool. Don't worry. Don't worry about your body image. Don't worry about all the predators. It's okay.
No. If your kids are hungry, you give them a phone with pictures of
burgers on it.
Hot models. No, because they should know that they're way too fat.
Oh, that's right. You want to train them.
That's why you think I would give them a phone.
And of course, you would just turn the Wi-Fi off so they can't access the internet. They can only access GNet, the local network.
GNet, yeah.
It's not good for anybody, man.
The local network is generally not PG rated, so
you don't want to give that to your kids.
No, you definitely don't want to give that to your kids.
Interesting. Just look.
I've had to explain that to people when they come over or something, and it's like
your house is not kid friendly.
It's not. Can you believe it? With a 20-foot snake, my house is not kid friendly. Amazing.
So your 20-foot snake. I mean, it could probably kill you, but what age would you be like?
Kill me. People always say that.
That's not a good. Well, it depends.
We have an understanding.
I'm thinking the snake would have to outsmart you first.
That shouldn't be that hard.
Right. So it's like, there you go. The snake's
it just needs to make me trip and fall and then hit my head on the floor. Then it's got all the time that it needs to eat me.
The snake is giving you some roofies or something like that.
Yeah, the snake is giving me roofies.
That would be a good television show, right? Or at least a comic that somebody could draw up. That would be kind of funny.
No, the biggest thing the snake gives is large poops.
But if you brought in like a 5-year-old, I mean, is the snake going to even care?
5-year-old might be doable for the snake, but it's so in the wild, where these snakes are from, its natural food source of the adult size reticulated python are monkeys.
Oh, so right about a 5-year-old, they'd be like, "Ooh, dinner."
So not humans, just monkeys. So you can see, while humans are not the proper food source, monkeys would be.
Right, that would be kind of like the difference, though, of eating the fake meat and the real burger.
Mm-hmm.
Snake's like close enough. Close enough.
I mean, it probably wouldn't complain, but anything under a 5-year-old probably would be a very tasty snack
for the snake. Now, this is interesting news. The Daily Mail, which I know, not exactly the height of journalism, reporting a new study. Where is this out of? From Stanford University.
Mm-hmm.
Smoking cannabis daily, a third more likely to develop heart disease.
I don't think that's true.
Well, the people at Stanford.
Yeah, they're not correct.
I'm also wondering the difference between smoking and, so is it the cannabis or is it just strictly the inhaling?
It's none of that. I can tell you exactly what it is. It's the lethargy. It's the lack of physical activity that comes along with people that are smoking a bunch of pot.
They're not going out and running a marathon. Issues.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know one guy that smokes pot that did run a marathon. But here, let me adjust the chaise lounge a little bit. There we go. You got to look at the co-symptoms here. Like there's a certain type of person that would both enjoy marijuana and a lack of exercise.
You mean gamers?
Well, not necessarily gamers, but just people that are spending, a lot of YouTubers, I know.
Yeah.
People that are spending a lot of time in front of computer screens and smoke pot and don't get out much would probably all have an increased risk of heart-related disease.
And that what you're saying makes sense because it also says it didn't matter whether the drug was smoked, taken as part of edibles or other methods.
Yep.
So it's just hey, I don't want to go out. I'm just going to sit here.
See, what I just did is called a meta study.
Ooh. That's what people come to.
Analyze data somebody else gathered and said they were wrong. Here, let me explain it to you.
Well, their data says that it's still a higher risk, but this is where we have a lot of intriguing things coming out because I've seen multiple, studies now, which are claiming, and I don't even know how you do this, and I don't necessarily believe them, but there are studies that are coming out of otherwise respected sources saying that, the people that have been vaccinated against COVID are having less heart and stroke issues than the people that weren't. And I don't even know how you separate those groups at this point.
Yeah, that's a politically motivated study.
Well, it could obviously be, which is why it should be questioned.
Yeah. Yes. The way that you build a study like that is you start with the end goal in mind, and you say, of all the people that have had these issues, that have had heart-related issues, when they had that heart-related issue, were they vaccinated at the time or not? And you include samples from before COVID existed into that. And you come up with the answer that clearly people that were never vaccinated had way more heart issues than people that were vaccinated, because the vaccination started after you started collecting the data.
Right. This is it. It says
48. You can do anything you want with a study. It's really easy stuff. I
how to lie with statistics.
Companies. Yeah, exactly. I had a client that was in the business of doing medical studies, or really not so much doing them, but taking the data and cranking out findings from it. That was their company did. And so I learned quite a bit about that whole process.
It says that marijuana, third most commonly used drug in the United States behind alcohol and tobacco. And I'm curious about that, because I would think marijuana at this point.
Caffeine, I would think, would be much higher usage than both of those.
I guess they don't include caffeine for some reason.
Caffeine is a very addictive drug.
And also very bad for your heart if taken in the quantities, especially.
But ironically, it's good for weight loss. So,
well, yes. Well, and there's. I've talked to my cardiologist about this, because I'm like, well,
oh yeah, are you dead yet? We forgot to check.
I am not dead yet. Okay. The drug seems to be working, so the extra heartbeats have disappeared. At least, And
what was this one? Let me look it up real quick while we're talking. What's the drug called?
The drug is called flecainide, which is a fun little drug. But
is that the brand name, I would assume?
It is. There's another name that it gets sold under as well, like Topa something or other. But it's FLEC, flecainide. And the caffeine, the cardiologist is like, no. I mean, if a few cups of coffee a day, not a big deal. I think where you get into trouble with the caffeine are the people that are like slamming Red Bulls, like having 10 a day or more. And some people do. I don't know how their heart doesn't explode. But I don't know where that comes in. And I would also think that tobacco use has been on the decline over the last decade, where marijuana use is way up. I mean, how many people, it says 48 million smoke cannabis at least once a year. How many people are smoking tobacco now?
I think it's mostly just the Zoomers.
Are still doing tobacco?
I don't think there's any Gen Xers that smoke cigarettes. There might be a few millennials. There might be a few, presidential candidate types that are in their 80s. But for the most part, I think the only people I've seen smoking are the 20-year-olds.
Now this says, who is this? The CDC. Oh, they're always right. That in 2020, they estimate 30.8 million adults in the United States smoke cigarettes. And I don't know how often that means, but we just, that was like 50 million people smoke pot. So I don't know how you...
You sure you want to be taking this stuff? Because one of the side effects is vision problems.
Yeah. Well, I understand where it all comes from. It's a fun little drug. It's like black box, got to be careful. And he said, it's the smallest dose possible, which for a guy that's my size.
Milligrams?
Yeah. So for now, and my guess is what I'd like to do is, since it seems to have cleared this up, would be to remove that from the equation and see if it comes back.
Yeah. So you can't do beta blockers when you take it.
There is I'm on a calcium blocker and something else. It's lots of fun stuff. But I did have the root canal redo done on Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
And that was quicker than I expected. Under an hour. It was a little sore the next day, but by today, it's pretty much back to normal. And I go back in a couple of weeks where they'll finish it off. He's like, yeah, there's a lot of bacteria in here. We'd rather I'm going to fill it with some antibiotic juice.
Yep.
And then let that sit in there for a couple of weeks and then remove that so you don't have the fun stuff come back.
Right.
But at least that was easier than expected. I'm like, well, how hard is that going to be to
That's good.
to redo that? So I guess for those who have that recommendation to do a retreat on a root canal, it seemed way easier than the original root canal. Whether or not everybody will have the same experience, I don't know.
So the first root canal just wasn't done well, or what?
This one, I guess, was, and it was the second to the last tooth on the upper side. So, I mean, It wasn't the furthest back molar. It was the next one.
Yeah.
And the endodontist said, for whatever reason, and within like the last 10 years, they have learned that, I don't know if this is everybody or just some people, that there is a little extra bit of the nerve that has often been missed in the past. And that seems to be what happened here, where there was a bit of the nerve, which was higher up, that the dentist didn't catch. And if you leave a little bit of a nerve, I guess, when you do a root canal, it's eventually going to go really badly.
Well, let bacteria eat it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then that bacteria stays
but you shouldn't have bacteria in there. That's the issue.
Well, right. Which is also part, I guess, of the root canal not being done in 100%.
How long ago was the root canal done, the first one?
It was probably about 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
Oh.
So when they did the x-rays, they saw a little bit there of the infection, and I don't know how they can tell. I'm guessing they've got little meters on everything, because once he got to, into there, and that point, he was like, oh yeah, there's a lot of bacteria.
Well, you could see it.
What's it look like? Something fun, I'm sure.
Kind of like a grayish ooze.
Oozing out of your teeth. It's like, so I'm glad I didn't see that part.
You can usually smell it.
Yeah, see, they have the big, they got the dam in and all of that. So,
yep.
And the other stuff that was going on, but he did a good job. Didn't feel a damn thing. And it was whatever he gave me. It's like, I told him I was on the flecainide, because the flecainide, the things they give you are like, any dentist, any doctor, any nurse, anybody you're dealing with, let them know you're on this stuff, which lets me know it's not something I would like to be on super long term.
Well, I mean, I don't know that you can do general anesthetic with flecainide, because your heart will stop.
Yeah, that would be a bad thing.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a pain in the ass.
But if you did a little coke right before going on general anesthetic, you'd be totally fine. Not medical advice.
No, yeah, dude. Please do not take medical advice from the Unrelenting podcast.
No.
But we just know how to balance these things right out so everything works. And, we're not medical professionals, but we will play one on the internet.
Well, we're not medical professionals, but we're sick enough that we've had to read all the different medical information for the drugs that we take ourselves, which probably means we know more than most doctors.
Yeah, we've come across things. Like I said, or maybe I did. When I talked to the cardiologist, and I'm like, yeah, I was reading a study from Cedars that talked about if you take over a gram of the fish oil, it causes, a more prevalence of AFib. And he's like, really? And I noticed he put that in the notes of my visit. So I'm wondering if he wanted to go look that up.
That to the next guy.
Yeah. He's going to go look that one up and be like, wow, wait, that's right.
I have had, I like my doctor. I've been with the same guy for a decade that I've been in Austin. And I like, because after like the first year, we got an understanding going, which is that I do the research. I find out what drugs that I need to take. And then I tell him, and then he does the script for it. Now, I'm sure he's not going to write a script for something that I just want to try for fun. But
Gene's like, I need the really extra strong Viagra.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he's written out a script for Viagra for me because I wanted to try it. Don't need it. Not at all, ladies. Don't need that stuff. Does not requirement at all. But I heard through the grapevine that it could actually be a fun little drug for when you're engaging in certain sexual activities.
Gene's like, no, I heard this really helps lower your blood pressure. So, I mean,
it does lower your blood pressure. That's absolutely correct. Yep. And he had to, when he was writing the script out for Viagra, he had to, remind me that, make sure that like you're not overdoing this Viagra stuff when you're taking your blood lowering medicine, blood pressure meds.
Unless you really want to just die in the saddle. If you're going to
go for a 4-day orgy, don't take the blood pressure meds for those 4 days.
See, I want to see that.
You
the
really
medication bottle.
Me.
No, I don't want to see the orgy. No.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure you don't.
I just want to see that on the bottle. If you're going to go for a 4-day orgy, please.
That's something the doctor has to tell you verbally while having a smirk on his face. Not
well, it's just like the air fryer people. They're just covering the ass. Like, I have to tell you this.
Yeah. Well, he said, this stuff's really expensive. So I'll write you a script for it, but just keep in mind, this is not like, if you don't need it, if you just want it for fun, this is a expensive drug to be having fun with. And he's not kidding, because that stuff is pretty pricey if you get that. And it's not Viagra. I think it was, what is it? Started with a C.
Russian Viagra?
No, don't think there's such a thing. Cialis, I believe. Yeah, Cialis is the good stuff. The Viagra was the first in that type of drug, and Viagra. Well, you all know the history of Viagra. It was developed as a blood pressure lowering drug
with very weird side effects.
Yeah, and it worked okay. It wasn't great at lowering blood pressure, but everyone seemed to be walking around with hard-ons all day long.
They seemed happier.
So they remarketed it.
And the happier you are, the more your blood pressure goes down. It's odd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it just kind of shifted the blood pressure from one part of your body to a different part of your body.
If you're experiencing an erection that lasts for over 4 hours.
It does the same thing in women.
It has the same effect?
Yeah. It shifts where the blood goes.
So it's like a traffic cop.
Kinda. Yeah. It changes the prioritization of what parts of your body, have an increase in blood pressure and what parts have a decrease in blood pressure.
Where else can you get this kind of information? I'm asking you.
Not medical information, that's for sure.
No. But as we said, if you're experiencing an erection that lasts for over 4 hours, please call your doctor.
4 hours?
Right.
Well, dude, that's not even enough for one orgy.
It's like, I'm not even getting warmed up
yet. This is why you do Cialis instead of Viagra. Viagra is about 2 to 4 hours. Cialis is 12 to 14 hours.
So Viagra, you're really watching that clock. You're like, damn.
Yeah, Viagra is like, if you take your Viagra, like, before you're literally physically in bed, if you take it at the beginning of your date.
Yeah, you don't want to do it at dinner.
You're going to be, you're going to be bumping into the table at dinner and then nothing after that.
Timing is everything.
Whereas with the Cialis, you pop that thing anytime during that day and you're good to go until past midnight.
You pop that thing, yeah. Mm-hmm. 84 people right now listening live to this are wondering what they have signed up for.
Yeah.
And it's unrelenting.show. That's what you've signed up for.
Yeah,
tell your friends about it.
Definitely.
Review the show. Nobody has donated to the show this week, so I understand that. They were
with
so
the
offended.
Sexist commentary coming from you, I'm not surprised.
They were so offended by the sexist content in the last show.
Mm-hmm.
Although more of them are showing up to listen now, so it shows you what they really like. I know what you guys like. I know what you're here to hear. You're going to be like,
Bill O'Reilly is what they like.
Karen and Gene said something really horrible, but I'm going to come and listen more because I kind of like it. It kind of makes me feel good. I was watching
your girl.
My girl?
Yeah.
Taylor?
Yeah.
Taylor Swift. I'd watch her anytime.
Your girl?
That's true. Very true.
She's a little feminist, isn't she?
It's a short list. Yeah, I don't mind. It'll work right through. She's 33. I mean, it's going to work right through.
You think?
Yeah. She'll be
the older she get, the more feminist.
No, I say by 40, she's a dyed-in-the-wool Republican again.
You think?
I do. That's my guess. I've said it multiple times. People can tell me I'm wrong.
Be a bitter old single woman?
No, I don't. Because she's got $1 billion. So why be bitter? Even if you don't find the right guy, you got $1 billion.
Bitter ones out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Billion dollars.
Look at the Hillary Clintons of the world.
No. Because she's a crazy lesbian, so it's different.
And Taylor isn't.
No, I don't believe so. I mean, maybe.
Proof?
I don't know.
Do you have proof?
No.
Hmm.
I mean, I wish I did, because, I mean, that's the kind of proof I would like
I'd like to see that proof.
Yeah. I would like to, personally, I would like to get proof, not, I don't want to witness said proof. I would rather just
I
get
wouldn't mind witnessing it.
the first-hand proof would be the best way to go.
The first-hand proof.
First-hand proof, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
not both hands.
Right. Well, but with
Just one.
Depends what the other one's doing at the time. It's all questionable. This is not medical or personal advice. I
will say that, actually, as a guy, watching lesbian sex is just more funny than anything else.
She's like, this is what the Tonight Show used to be. This is great stuff.
This is right here. Yeah.
The dialogue is the best.
Tonight Show back in the Carson days had plenty of dark humor going on.
Oh, totally.
A lot of innuendos. Get guys like Buddy Hackett on there.
It was a different time.
Yeah. Yeah. It was,
and even Letterman was a different time, because him and O'Reilly had a pretty good relationship. They disagreed politically, but O'Reilly still, when it's Letterman's birthday, or if it's that show started or went off the air X amount of years ago, he shows clips over the years of him and David Letterman. And they were able to, even though they were diametrically.
NBC?
He was, he worked in a lot of different places. By the time he was on Letterman, he was mainly on Fox, but he would go on because he was always writing a book, as he is now. Mm-hmm. And Letterman would have him on. I think Letterman enjoyed the sparring, making fun of him, that the ability when somebody's right there. Letterman thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. O'Reilly thinks they're the smartest guy in the room. And as long as they don't tear each other's throats out, it makes for an interesting podcast or
they
television
both
show.
Like young women, so
who doesn't? That we would work well with Letterman and O'Reilly.
I would work better with young women, but
no, you wouldn't. You wouldn't get any work done at all.
I get plenty of work done. What are you talking about? I can multitask.
Yeah. So says you. The women are like, nah. No, don't think you can.
See Alice, baby. See Alice.
She's like, I'm writing a dissertation right now.
Dad, how did this podcast, a serious podcast, turn into this, man?
Wait, when was this a serious podcast? Is the real question. Was it? Serious? I don't think it was ever that serious. A lot more
serious than it is today.
Well, this is what the beauty of a completely unscripted podcast is, and that's what Unrelenting is. And we've talked about this both on and off the show, where we could give it a direction. And it's like, and it would probably help with the ratings, with how many people listen and how many people,
money coming in.
And with that, possibly. Although I'm with John C. Dvorak.
Or the Drummond factor.
If you heard yesterday's No Agenda, the newsletters for No Agenda go out before every show. And they're always saying, hey, donate, which makes sense because you have to remind people.
That's why I don't get their newsletter. I realized that on the second one he ever sent. And I said, John, I don't need the advertising here.
A lot of people responded this week with, hey, we're broke. And I believe that because it's what we have said from day one of this Biden inflation.
I know. This is why I think live streaming works, because in our fun live streams where not only do I get to pretend
order your
to be
food.
Jerry,
right,
but it's also generating a few $100 an hour.
The concept, though, is we could have a show that is 100% politics. We could have a show that's 100%, 80s culture. We could do a show about a variety of different topics, but that has never really seemed to be the direction we wanted to go in. And maybe that is just selfish for us, but it's like, I like having a show with the shows that I do now. Planet Rage, it's very simplistic what we're going to do. There is a shtick to it. We know we're going to find some clips of somebody that's either pissed off or we're going to be pissed off about something somebody said. And it's a cathartic experience. With Grumpy Old Ben's, it was always more sticking to the tech stuff. Sure, we added a little bit of politics in. This show, knowing that you don't need to really have any special preparation for it, and it's show up and see what the conversation turns
Boy,
into.
is it obvious to everyone that that's the case.
Maybe. It may be.
Yeah.
But I think people like that.
This show genuinely started by Darren and I talking on the phone and saying, why aren't we doing a podcast? This like literally our sitting here and yammering for an hour is a podcast. And
our conversations are so good. People should really have to listen to them.
Yeah. And that was, it seemed like kind of natural to be able to do that. And then just miraculously, you broke up with, what's his face?
The old what's his face.
The old what's his face. Exactly.
And then Russia invaded Ukraine and everybody wanted to turn to a Russian.
Yeah, exactly. So it like timing just seemed to work out good for this becoming a podcast. And talk about serious. So back a year ago, when the special military operation started, I did that sort of rundown of the history of Ukraine on this show, not on my own show, on this show. And that was, I think, very, very, it was good. People, I think, enjoyed it, getting a totally different perspective than what the news was saying. But also, that was about as serious as we got for the rest of the year on this show.
But it's like being too serious is no fun. And we also understood when it came to boots on the ground in Russia or Ukraine that, one, we were probably more accurate than the mainstream media, but we also knew that it was very possible that the stats and the news coming out of that area was bullshit.
Yeah.
And we've always said that we can't confirm 99% of it.
No.
So anybody that's claiming to be able to be like, well, we can tell you with 100% certainty. It's like, no, you can't. I mean, the story I remember of the missile that went into Russia where it was like, oh, obviously it was a Russian missile. And it was like, nope, nope. Turned out it was a Ukrainian misfire. Oops. And this is why you have to question everything, especially in the deepfake technology. I do agree. You got mentioned on the No Agenda show yesterday, because Adam Curry, again, was talking about listening at podcasts faster than 1.0. And he was like, my buddy Gene, he's telling people to listen at faster.
Yep.
And his concept was, and I think he's right on this, when you're listening at anything faster than 1x, you have a much greater chance of missing a deep fake now. Because the deep fakes are getting so good that there are some of the deep fakes at this point which are so good you're never going to catch it at any speed, but there are some that are off just a little bit. And if you listen at 1.25 or 1.5, or God forbid, 2 or faster, you're totally going to miss it out. And I think he was right, the Podfather was, in saying that listening at a faster speed has trained people's brains to expect things to sound like that. So they're going to miss, even listening at the one time, a bad deep fake might get by those people because they're used to hearing those weird audio abnormalities in listening at faster than 1.0 speed.
Yeah, I disagree with that.
I'm sure you do.
First of all, you can tell a deep fake just as easily or just as hard at higher speeds as at normal speed. There's nothing magic about deep fakes that makes them sound worse at normal speed, but better at high speed. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, there is, because there's a little bit of the audio. It's not glitches, but when you listen at a faster speed, there is that weird pumping effect or whatever you want to call it.
No.
There is. There's something there.
No, that's because you're using bad software.
That could be.
The way that you speed up a podcast that is just somebody talking, or you could speed up, I guess, music.
You smoke a lot of pot, and then it seems like they're talking really fast.
It's not going to sound all that great, but the way that you do it is by essentially resampling the audio through a digital method and then playing that back at a higher speed. So you're certainly making adjustments digitally in real time when you do that, and it is a corruption of the audio. But here's the piece that makes what Adam said not be true. You don't need to do that for deepfake. You can literally record that sound already accelerated. So you don't take and sample the deepfake sound clip and then compress it into a higher speed audio clip the way that you would a normal podcast. So a real voice on a podcast actually goes through a lot more digital manipulation to make it be faster, but still keep the pitch the same than a deepfake, because the deepfake can literally be recorded at a faster speed at the proper pitch with nothing necessary to be done to it.
No, I agree. I think it's just that if the deepfake isn't 100% accurate as to the voice, with the speeding up in most podcast players, and you may be using one that's better than most, but that rejiggering of the handle that it's using to speed it up and try to keep it at the same sound, it does have a weird little artifact to it. Now, I'd like to be the Jerry Springer between you two fighting this one out. The Podfather and the Russian apologist going head to head.
So the Podfather will claim that he can hear things better and he's got better ears, even though they're cyborg ears. He's using
that's how they're
cyborg
better
technology to enhance his hearing.
So he's juicing, fair. He's enhancing.
He's totally enhancing. That's absolutely right. But I think that the fake voice, right? All the different, there's a multitude of programs right now that can create those fakes, and I've used probably 4 of them. So
which is the best?
And there's probably way more than 4. They're meant for different things, and they have different price models. So best by price, best by sound,
best by quality is like sounds as good as it possibly can.
I think the one that sounds the best is what the hell is it called? Let me look it up.
There's like Voice AI, 11 Labs. Of course, Descript does their own bit as well.
Yeah, and the Descript is not the best. Their tech is quite a bit older at this point. So 11 Labs, 11 Labs is the one I pay for. So 11 Labs is the one I did your voice in, and that is probably the best sounding right now, without getting into knowing anything about programming.
Right.
You can do, because it's sitting on top of OpenAI. So you can actually, if you want to dig in and actually do some programming, you can actually tweak these things to be more accurate to what you're going for. But the thing that Voice Lab, which is by 11 Labs, has built in with just a normal user interface is they have a setting called stability. And what stability does is it determines the variance in speech patterns and pitch of the fake voice. This is why a lot of previous generation text-to-speech programs all sounded very obviously fake.
Right.
Because every single word was pronounced the exact same way every time that it was pronounced, with no difference at all in the speed or the pitch of that pronunciation.
Right. Every time the word came up, it sounded exactly the same.
Right. Which is what I like this sentence. Yes, all the same way. Very monotonous. What this stability setting does is it lets you either add or remove the randomness variances that happen in speech, but they're not quite random. They're based on certain words. Like there are certain words that lend themselves well, like the word well, to being stretched out like that. You hear how
they're more excitable words.
Yeah. They're words basically that you can, I don't want to call it singing, but you can stretch that last sound a little bit.
It's just like when somebody brings something up and you're like, wow.
Exactly. So that's one. The other one is a pitch shift, which is when if you want to really enunciate a certain thing, you want to highlight it verbally, you may do a pitch shift so that it's distinct from other words. If you do too much of it, you're going to start sounding like Christopher Walken. You don't want to go overboard and do that.
You don't want to sound like Christopher Walken.
Exactly. So that was pretty bad, but
I know. I haven't heard Christopher Walken in a while.
Need to rewatch.
Tell you
one of those movies that he was in.
Yeah, he was always good. He was always fun. Now they only give you like a certain amount of words, they say. When
this is why I pay for it, because I think I pay for 100,000 words a month.
And now if you wanted to do a whole audiobook, and you want to make just changes to little bits here and there, how do they do the 100? Is it like, would you get a preview and then you get a chance to render the whole thing? I mean, how do you know?
Oh, no. You're paying basically for machine time.
Yeah, which is kind of the problem if it's not right. And you're like, well, I rendered the whole book, but it wasn't done properly. So how do you make sure it's going to be done to your liking?
You subscribe, you pay for more.
You just keep asking for more.
Nothing.
I got
you
you.
Just pay for more. So
as you should here on Unrelenting.
Expensive.
You should pay for more.
I don't remember how much I paid for this thing, but I think it was like $20 or less for like 100,000 words, something like that.
But they're fun to play around with. It's much better technology than it used to be.
It's way better. And I've been a fan of, like, I mentioned this to Adam, in fact, that my first foray into computer speech was actually in 1987 when I wrote a program that did computer speech on the Mac.
Nice.
Yeah,
I think it would be a great idea to do a YouTube channel, like little 5-10 minute blobs of news, and using that technology to read it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that way you don't.
Literally has been done now for several years by a whole bunch of Chinese and Indian people.
But it's getting better and better, man.
It is. And in fact, I have different UI software that will generate the video portion based on what you're talking about automatically as well. So
that's wild.
If you want to just type in some stuff or copy and paste some stuff that somebody else actually said.
Yeah, I want to try that. That'll be fun.
And then generate the video, that's totally doable. And then start earning, video views on YouTube. I hate those videos. I think they suck. I always point out in comments when stuff is AI generated in videos and discourage people from subscribing, but they still get tons of subs.
Hey, and
people don't understand when they're consuming fake news.
Hey, we'll guarantee you right here, right now, what you hear on unrelenting.show will never be AI.
Well, it will be as soon as Darren's dead, because I'll keep doing the show with an AI voice. But for the time being, we're going to have it live.
Yeah. Until I'm dead. Thanks.
Yeah.
And that's nice to know. At least it'll carry on. And that'll be my legacy.
That's right. Your legacy will be fully controlled by me. It's perfect.
I can only imagine. I would like to say I'd care, but I'll be dead.
That's right.